All right, welcome. In this explainer, we're going to get right into the basics of automation. Now, if you're studying mechatronics, you know this is a massive subject. So today, we're going to break down the core ideas of how this amazing technology actually works.
Okay, so here's our plan. First, we'll look at what automation is. Then, we'll dive into something called the automation loop. After that, we'll see it all in action with a real-world example, a car wash. And finally, we'll talk about why this is all so incredibly important. All right, first things first. Before we get into all the cool mechanics, let's make sure we're all on the same page with a nice, clear definition of automation. So, what is it really? At its heart, automation is all about using machines and equipment to do jobs with very, very little help from a person. The whole idea is to build systems that are just designed to work all on their own, doing the same thing perfectly every time.
Okay, so how does it all actually work? Well, every automated system, and I mean every single one, follows this continuous three-step cycle, and we call this the automation loop. So what are these three steps? They are input, controller, and output. The easiest way to think about it is like a little conversation. The input sends a message, the controller thinks about it and decides what to do, and then the output physically does the action. They always work together in that exact order. The whole cycle always kicks off with an input. Now, an input is a device that sends an electrical signal to the system. It could be something like a sensor or even just a simple push button. It's the trigger, the thing that tells the whole process, okay, let's go. Next in line, you have the controller. This is a special industrial computer. You'll hear it called a PLC, or Programmable Logic Controller. This is the computer which acts as the brains of the whole operation. It gets that signal from the input, looks at its programming, and decides exactly what should happen next. And that brings us to the final piece, the output. This is the component that actually goes and does the physical work. The controller sends a command to the output, and that output performs an action, like starting a motor, opening up a valve, or maybe just turning on a light. Okay, that's the theory, but let's make this real. An automatic car wash is a fantastic example of a system that puts this whole input, controller, output loop into practice perfectly. Think about it. From the second you drive up and pick your wash package, all the way to the end when you drive away with a shiny car, the entire thing is just one clear sequence of automated steps. So check this out. The positioning step is a great example. As the car rolls forward, it trips a sensor. That sensor is our input device, and it's the sensor which sends a signal to the controller. And that controller then immediately turns on an output, like a big sign that tells the driver, stop. Then you get to the wash cycle itself, and this is where the controller is the boss. It's sending out all these signals to all the different outputs, right in order. You've got the nozzles, which are outputs that spray water. You have the brushes, which are outputs that scrub the car, and you have the blowers, which are outputs that dry everything off. So, let's bring it all together. Why is it so important to understand this loop? Why does this matter? Not just in some giant factory, but everywhere. Let's look at the huge benefits automation gives us. This slide really says it all, doesn't it? Doing things by hand can be slow, it can be expensive, and, we all make mistakes. But automation? Well, automation is a tool which saves a ton of time, cuts costs, and pretty much gets rid of errors. It just makes any process way more efficient and reliable. So the really key takeaway is that this input-controller-output loop is absolutely everywhere. It's in the complex robots you'll see in a factory for sure, but it's also in the simple traffic light down the street. So as you go about your day, just think about it. What other automated systems are you using? I bet you'll be surprised by just how many you can find.